Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Ali Haji. He's the CEO of American Tungsten, who are a listed Canadian exploration company focusing on advancing high-grade magnetite mineral properties with its flagship asset, the IMA Mine Project in Idaho. Ali has over 20 years of metals and mining investment management experience, working for public listed capital markets experience as well, where he has served on a variety of senior leadership roles within the mining industry. He's here today to discuss the background to American Tungsten, its importance in today's industrial technology landscape, US funding and regulatory controls, and what the company's looking to achieve in the long term. Also, just want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Hallcroft, who are leaders in property risk management in the mining industry since 1992. They offer insurance risk surveys, construction risk reviews, and asset criticality assessments and more. They work across 600 sites globally and support all areas of mining and mineral extraction. So if you're looking for any property insurance risk management services, then please visit their website at www.hallcroft.com. And all the details are in the show notes. Ali, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Well, Rob, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for your time. And wondered if you can give us a little bit of background about your experience and your career. As I mentioned in introduction, you've been obviously in the investment space, and you've been working for a number of different mining companies in the past, working as obviously in the senior leadership roles. So I just wondered if you can just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, just so they've got a background as to what you've done in the past.
Absolutely. I worked for Invesco in the asset management space for about 12 years in various positions across Hong Kong, London, and Toronto. My focus was on M&A integration. So I worked on Morgan Stanley Van Kempen's acquisition. I worked on AIG's real estate business in Asia. That was one of the acquisitions that we completed there. And around 8 years ago, when I left Invesco as a result of restructuring and had a fair bit of capital in my pocket, but my father, who had been in mining for the last 4 decades, an industry that I perhaps never thought I'd fall into, but entered 8 years ago, and a colleague of mine was beginning to acquire an asset from Centerra by the name of ATO in Mongolia. And I joined him as an advisor to complete that acquisition, to ultimately list that company and advise it through to just pre-production, so call it 2019. In 2019, I started a lithium company by the name of Lithium Ion Energy that was focused on looking for lithium in Mongolia, given the Chinese are the largest consumers, yet they venture into the far-reaching corners of the world to acquire lithium. We found that there are significant deposits of lithium in Mongolia. We also acquired 2 projects in the Northwest Territories. And as of March this year, we signed a joint venture agreement with a Chinese entity to develop our assets in Mongolia and ultimately bring them to production, leaving Ion Energy with an NSR pre-carried to commercial production. And that sort of keeps things on cruise control in a very difficult lithium market. So beyond that, I've also been on the board of a number of other mining companies, including Antler Hill Mining and Aranjan Resources, which is a copper explorer in Mongolia as well. My recent of course, venture and foray that we're speaking about here today is American Tungsten. And as you rightly pointed out, the IMA mine in Idaho is the company's focus.
Yep. So just wondering if you can just give us a background and history of American Tungsten.
Absolutely. American Tungsten has 2 assets. One is the Star Iron Ore property in British Columbia. But the true focus for us is the IMA mine in Idaho that is a past producer. It was in production in the early part of the last century. In 1881, the Bradley Mining Group began operations there, bringing it to production, where it was the 4th largest producer of tungsten in North America. In 1979, Inspiration Development, which focused primarily on the moly deposit that is around our tungsten veins, operated till 1982. 2008 to 2010, Gentor Resources did additional drilling on the Molly. They found a significant resource there. They also found some significant silver credits that we haven't factored into our valuation. But our goal today, given tungsten and its critical nature, its use in various military and industrial applications, as well as government backing, naming it a critical metal, of which it has been since 1979, but of course, with the state of the world today, the requirement of tungsten and its production to be brought online domestically is of paramount importance to the administration. So we acquired or optioned the mine in 2024. Having since done that, we have done a number of things, including rehabilitation work, which is now commencing. We're also looking at permitting. And the goal is to bring production online in the next 18 months to be the fastest tungsten producer in North America, and in a jurisdiction in which we believe to be a strong mining jurisdiction, Idaho, and of course provide us with the first mover advantage as well.
Before we talk about more about obviously the company, project, etc., I wonder if you can just tell us a little bit about tungsten. Where does the supply come from, and also why is it important in today's industrial and technological landscape?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I think most of the time when we do speak about tungsten, a lot of our listeners don't appear to know what it is, or for the older generation, the filament light bulbs that we had in our homes at one point, each of those filaments was made of tungsten. Tungsten is the second hardest element on the periodic table, so only softer than diamond. It is extremely tough and used to strengthen alloys. It also has a very high melting point at 2,500 degrees centigrade. So its applications today are primarily in the military and defense complex, where it's used for armor, ammunition, shell casings, missile bodies, as well as aerospace, where you cannot build, let's say, an F-35 or even any commercial airline for that matter, because each of those turbines has tungsten in it. It's also used in the turbines in wind power. We cannot build a nuclear power plant without tungsten because it is required given its high melting point. It's used in microchips. It's used in semiconductors. A small percentage of it goes into just about everything that we touch and feel that is metal today in order to strengthen it. So it is something that is used quite profusely across various industries, primarily the defense complex. And its supply, as you mentioned, is now something that has become quite critical in nature. So it is being produced by South Korea, Vietnam, China, of course, with the dominance of all critical metals, produces 85% of it today. However, the other nations like Russia that produce tungsten are, of course, not friendly allies of the West today. And so we have to look at sources that are perhaps more aligned with our interests. South Korea with El Monte being one of those projects that's coming online here shortly. But the goal is to bring back a lot of the production that was sort of mothballed in 2015 when the Chinese put out it flooded the market essentially with very cheap tungsten. And as a result, all the mines that were operational had to mothball their operations. And where we are today, with China now restricting the export of tungsten come January 1 next year, it is imperative that tungsten production starts to come back online in the domestic markets that are deemed friendly.
Why don't you just give us an update on your flagship asset, the IMA Mine Project in Idaho?
Absolutely. I had the privilege of visiting site about a week and a half ago now, where we went into the D-level adit, and the D-level adit is above the water table. It's about 2,200 meters above sea level, and it goes as far in as about 1,500 meters. We were able to walk the entire adit unimpeded, so it is very well protected from the elements. It has maintained its structure, and it is safe to walk through. The next step in our process would be to rehabilitate the portals, ensure that they are safe for entry. As we start to bring more workforce online, we will be laying track to ensure that we have access to the various parts of the mine to not only move in equipment, but of course remove ore when we are in production. So that's been the first step of our rehabilitation today. We've also commenced water sampling, which we will be submitting to NEPA in order to get our permits to start production. But as I mentioned, one of the beauties of this mine is its entire resource is sitting above the water table. whereas the vast majority of tungsten mines in North America today have a resource that's underwater. So they would need to be pumped out, they would need to be rehabilitated and brought back online. We do not have that disadvantage. And this is why we believe that at IMA, we can be the fastest to bring tungsten production back online in North America. So the work you can expect from us over the summer, the 43101 is coming out here in short order. Once that is released, we'll have an indication of what our resource was. The prior operators did have a resource, about 500,000 tons at 0.63. And that grade I should touch on is quite high to begin with. Tungsten mining in Australia, their average grade is 0.11. They have a significant resource, but that's a lot of beneficiation before you start to see value creation and economic viability. At 0.63, our grade is high enough that if we were to employ ore sorting, we could double that to, let's say, 1.2, vastly changing the economics of our project. So with the 43101, you will see the resource that was defined historically by Bradley, Gentor, and Inspiration. You will also see our exploration plans that we are going to be conducting this summer. That will ultimately grow our resource, but also provide us with additional targets to bring production online quite quicker. And then we will be doing a 100-ton bulk sample that we will be shipping to 2 different mills in the vicinity, about 200 miles from our project. The intent there, of course, is to obtain a small credit for whatever we find. We do know that we have significant moly, 5.7 million tons at 0.15%. We also have about 2 ounces of silver per ton. So conduct the bulk samples, get a sense of our metallurgy, and then ultimately look to provide an offtake agreement, or achieve an offtake agreement, I should say, with the likes of Global Tungsten or Global Tungsten Powders, who are the 2 APTs in North America today that are able to process this product and ultimately feed it into the value supply chain for the industrial complex that will be acquiring that material.
With the current US administration prioritizing critical minerals, how has that translated into tangible benefits or support for American Tungsten?
Well, we've been a member of the DIBC, which is the Defense Industrial Base Consortium, since about February of this year. And we've been attending their conferences. They had a call shortly after the new administration brought on some folks to lead the Critical Metals Initiative. And tungsten was the 3rd most critical metal named in their list. So tungsten is certainly a priority to them. We've also found that they are looking to fast track permitting with respect to bringing mines back online. They're also deploying capital in the form of grants, as well as low interest loans from Exim, for instance. And so what we've been doing since around December of last year is we put together a white paper for the DoD that highlights the capex requirement, the spend that is required, and the output. So as a result, we're expecting to see a response from the DoD in due course. However, there are other agencies like the DLA, the Department of Energy, DARPA-E, that also have a grant program. So we brought on some key members of the team here to assist us with those approaches of obtaining that non-dilutive funding. And the expectation is that when we're out in Washington later this month, meeting with the various administration officials, to start to unlock value from a grant perspective and bring in more agencies to ultimately fund us, minimizing dilution and ensuring that we're able to achieve production domestically.
Are there any specific programs, funding, or regulatory tailwinds that are helping accelerate your progress? Obviously, you mentioned permitting.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there are. It's still early days in terms of receiving any interest or confirmation in terms of funding. However, the expectation, given the group that we've contracted in Washington to act as lobbyists for us, the conversations that we're having with various advisors and current board members of our company, the expectation is that, yes, they will be, the government will be looking to fund us. We've had conversations with advisors in New York, in Washington, and of course in Idaho as well, having met with Congressman Simpson's office while we were in Boise. The support that we're going to receive, or at least we're told we will receive, appears to be in line with what we're trying to achieve, and it might even go above and beyond our expectations.
Just wanted to talk about your leadership team and who are the key players and what unique expertise that they bring to the table.
Sure. When I came on board around 6, 7 weeks ago, the team consisted of a very strong set of technical advisors, 5 named individuals, Finley, Bill Brain, to name a few. These individuals have worked at essentially every tungsten mine in North America. And as we know, they've been shuttered since 2015. So having a technical advisory team that has worked on all tungsten assets in North America, I think is something that differentiates us from the crowd. Generally you may have a mining organization with a number of advisors, but these are very specific to the mineral that we're looking to derive value from. I also added two individuals to the board that we're extremely honored to have with us. One individual is Dan Nicholas. He used to run the Department of Energy's Loan Program Office, where he handed out to the tune of $40 billion for critical energy projects. He was also a banker at Salomon Brothers and Morgan Stanley prior to that. So he understands the banking side of the house, but he also understands the government funding side of the house. So Dan is going to be instrumental in putting us in front of the right agencies and guiding us through the process of obtaining that non-dilutive funding, as well as ensuring that we're doing what is required from a regulatory perspective to achieve that government support. The second individual that we added to the board is Jim Whitaker. Jim Whitaker is the Chief Operating Officer of Capstone Copper, valued at about $5.5 billion, one of the larger copper producers on the planet today. He was also the president of Escondida. He has worked at the likes of BHP and Barrick. So a real blue chip C-suite level, a C-level executive that we've added to the team to help us understand the complexities of going to production, as well as help us identify additional assets that we may look to roll in, given the very strong tungsten experience that we have in our organization today.
What sets American Tungsten apart as a value proposition for investors who are looking actually at the tungsten sector?
Tungsten is, we all know about gold and copper today because that seems to be the sort of talk. You look at the commodity prices there, and everybody's been following that. And there are hundreds of gold stories, juniors and developers alike. In the tungsten space, there are a very limited number of names, Almonte being one of them, Guardian being the other, and sort of EQ. You've got Fireweed with Mactung, and Tungsten Mining down in Australia. So those are sort of the key names that folks would recognize or would resonate with tungsten. The advantage that we have relative to our peers is our VP Exploration, Austin Zinser, who lives in Boise, Idaho, a very seasoned individual that was at Perpetua. So we've got a local team. We've got an asset that has a resource above the water table, a past producer. So it's not a greenfield asset or a brownfield asset that people are trying to, unearth value from. We know where the tungsten is. We walked through the adits about a week and a half ago, and we've seen the stopes that were started by the prior operators, just waiting for us to go in and start to pull out that material. So our path to production is quicker than anybody else in the space. Our resource is well defined with the expectation for it to grow. Our infrastructure in place relative to other mines, we believe to be quite advantageous. Mill sites within 200 miles of our operation. And of course, the fact that it is an underground adit that was not exposed to the elements. So the rehabilitation work is really quite simple. And it's a matter of just getting permitted to get going and start building revenue or generating revenue. And this is why I think American Tungsten is a far more valuable investment proposition than the vast majority of tungsten operators today.
And lastly, what are the key catalysts should investors and stakeholders be watching for over the next sort of 6 to 12 months and beyond? And if there's anything else that you would like to add to inform our audience of?
Yeah, I would just like to say that, we have a busy summer ahead of us. We've got some exploration drilling to occur this summer. We have a 43-101 that's coming out imminently, an updated resource statement shortly thereafter, a bulk sample that will ultimately help us determine our metallurgy and our off-takers. And then, of course, the path to production. So production can be brought online within 18 months, as I mentioned. We're going to do everything that we need to do to align with those timelines. However, if we're able to beat them, and exceed those expectations, that's something that we will be doing as well. So stay tuned for a very busy sort of 6 to 24 months, if you will, in which we plan to bring IMA back online to produce tungsten in North America to the tune of 8% of local consumption.
Great. Ali, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us about American Tungsten, what obviously tungsten's used for, an update on your project, and obviously informing us about obviously the US funding regulation and everything that may be associated with bringing the project online. If our audience wants to reach out to you, if they want to obviously follow the story, how can they go about doing that, and what social media platform channels are you on?
My pleasure, Rob. American Tungsten trades on the CSE under ticker TUNG, TUNG. The intent for us is to look at an uplist on the NYSE Amex later this year, so stay tuned for that. If you'd like to get in touch with me, my contact details are on our website at www.americantungstencorp.com. You can also send me an email, and we're happy to distribute that after this conversation. We are on all social media platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, you name it. So any questions, do get in touch. And I'd like to thank you, Rob, for hosting me, and thank you to our listeners for giving me the time.
Yeah, great. We'll include all those in the show notes, the companies for easy access. And perhaps you want to come on the podcast next year, early part of next year, and give us an update on proceedings.
It would be my pleasure.
No worries. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed the episode. As always, appreciate your continued support. Please keep sharing these episodes far and wide. Speaking about obviously tungsten, but obviously it's a metal, hardened metal that is needed in our world, and it's something that I think everyone should be aware of, and because it's not necessarily spoken about. And especially at the moment with gold and copper taking much up of the news. So thank you for listening. Appreciate if you can share this episode far and wide. And until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes, and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.